I went to pick up my 5-year-old daughter, Juniper, our little June, from my sister Blythe's house after a long workday. She had offered to babysit so I could attend a mandatory conference. When I arrived at her porch that evening, I put my key into the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again, harder, confused. The key Blythe had given me just a month earlier had suddenly become useless. I knocked on the door, expecting the kids' voices or footsteps. Nothing. I rang the bell. Still nothing. I called Blythe. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Same result. I texted her. The messages didn't deliver. Panic crept in slowly, then all at once. I called my parents hoping for clarity, but instead of concern, they told me to stop being dramatic. They insisted Blythe was responsible, that she probably stepped out for a moment, and that I should calm down. But standing alone on that silent porch, I felt something was horribly wrong. My name is Marlo Walsh. My daughter is my entire life. Just 3 weeks before that day, June was dancing around our apartment in a unicorn dress for her birthday. She wished for a kitten, and I promised we'd visit the shelter. She believed me with all her heart. I never imagined anything would shake our world like this. Blythe had always been the golden child. Carol and Mitchell, our parents, held her on a pedestal. I was the late-in-life surprise, always compared, always falling short in their eyes. So when Blythe suddenly began being warm toward me, inviting us for dinners, praising June, offering help, I convinced myself it was a new beginning. When she offered to babysit for my conference, I pushed away the uneasy feeling inside me. I wanted to believe my family was healing. The morning drop-off had been normal. June hugged me tightly, holding her stuffed frog. Blythe smiled and told me to enjoy my day. At lunchtime, she even sent a photo, June coloring at the table with Barrett and Felicity, Blythe's twins. Nothing looked wrong. Nothing looked strange. But by 6 p.m., standing on that porch, facing a locked door and silence thick enough to choke on, fear tightened around my chest. I knocked harder, then pounded. Still nothing. Tears blurred my vision. I felt like I was losing air. I called the police. Officer Torres arrived within minutes. He listened calmly as I explained everything, my voice shaking. He knocked firmly. No answer. He radioed for permission, then forced the door open. The sound of the frame cracking felt like a warning. He stepped inside while I waited outside, frozen, clutching June's sweater, the one she wore almost every night. Every second was torture. I couldn't hear anything from inside the house. No voices. No movement. Just silence. When Officer Torres finally walked back out, his face was pale, almost gray. He looked at me with a heaviness that made my stomach drop. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "you shouldn't look." In that moment, the world I knew slipped out from under me. My sister hadn't just closed her door to me. Something far more terrifying had begun. When the police searched Blythe's house, I followed Officer Torres inside with my heart pounding. The whole place looked too clean, almost untouched, like no one had lived there for days. But upstairs, in the guest room, everything changed. The moment I stepped inside, my stomach twisted so hard I thought I might fall. The walls were covered from top to bottom with photos of my daughter, June. There were hundreds of them. Pictures I had posted online, screenshots from old videos, and even photos I had never taken. Some looked like they were taken through windows or from across parks. Seeing my child's face staring back at me from every direction made my body go cold. On a small table in the corner, the police had laid out what they found. June's medical records were stacked neatly, as if someone had gone through every detail of her life. There was a copy of her birth certificate, placed inside a plastic sheet as if it was something precious. Next to it was a thick notebook filled with Blythe's handwriting. When I opened it, I saw page after page describing June's behavior, her habits, her fears, her routines. It was like someone had been studying her every move. The final page had today's date written at the top. Below it were the words, Phase 3, Integration Begin. My throat closed. My hands shook so hard the paper rustled. This wasn't just a kidnapping. This wasn't someone acting out of panic or confusion. This was a plan. A long, careful plan to take my daughter from me completely. Blythe wasn't trying to be an aunt. She was trying to become June's mother. She wanted to erase me, piece by piece, until I didn't exist in June's life at all. I felt sick. My own sister had been preparing for this. She had been watching us, collecting information, creating timelines, making notes on how to replace me. It was like she saw June as a project, something she could redesign and claim. Every photo on the wall felt like a warning I had ignored. Every page in that notebook felt like a betrayal I never imagined was possible. I kept looking around the room, searching for any sign of June's presence, but there was nothing. No toys. No clothes. Not even her favorite stuffed frog. The room wasn't made for a child to live in. It was made for planning. It was made for obsession. Officer Torres asked if I needed to sit down, but I couldn't move. I felt frozen in place, staring at the photo of June taped right above the bed. In the picture, she was smiling. Innocent. Happy. She had no idea someone she trusted was preparing to take her away. In that moment, the fear inside me turned into something sharper, stronger. I didn't know where Blythe had taken my daughter, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would get June back, no matter what it took. Detective Hernandez asked me to come into a small room at the station. She said they had finally unlocked Blythe's laptop. I didn't expect anything good, but I wasn't prepared for what she showed me. She turned the screen toward me, and there it was, a group chat with my parents. The title at the top made my whole body tense, Operation Bright Future. It didn't look like a family chat. It looked like a plan, something they had been hiding from me for a long time. The messages went back weeks, maybe months. As I scrolled, my hands began to shake. My mother, Carol, had typed a long message about me. Reading her words felt like someone pressing a knife into my chest. She wrote, "Marlo is unstable. That apartment is no place for a gifted child like Juniper. She needs Blythe's structure and resources." I felt sick. Unstable? My mother had never said anything like that to my face. She never visited my apartment. She never even asked how I was doing. Yet here she was, calling me a danger to my own daughter. Right under her message was one from my father. Mitchell wrote, "We've failed Marlo, but we can't let her fail that little girl." I stared at the screen, unable to breathe for a moment. Failed me? He had barely been in my life. And now he was acting like taking June was some kind of act of charity. They were talking about my daughter like she was a prize. Like she would have a better life with them because they had more money, more space, more status. They didn't talk about June's happiness. They didn't talk about her love for me. They talked about resources, structure, image. They acted like I was unworthy before they even gave me a chance. Blythe had replied to them again and again, sending photos of June from the times she babysat. She wrote things like, "She's bonding with us," and "She fits right in with the twins." Every message felt like another punch to my chest. My own sister was reporting on my child, giving updates like June was an object being transferred. Another message from my mother said, "This is the right thing. Marlo won't understand now, but she will eventually." Reading that, I felt a heat in my chest, anger mixed with heartbreak. They didn't even plan to tell me. They thought I would accept this. They thought they could take June and convince themselves they were doing the right thing. Detective Hernandez watched me quietly, giving me time. She didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. The truth was there, clear and cruel. My parents didn't see me as a mother. They saw me as a mistake that needed correcting. They believed their money made them better, that their house was better, that their lives were better. They called it a rescue mission. But the only person June ever needed rescuing from was them. The moment the Amber Alert went out, everything around me felt unreal, like I was standing inside someone else's nightmare. My daughter's name was on every screen in the state. The photo they used was one from her 5th birthday, where she was blowing out unicorn candles. Seeing her smiling face under the word missing nearly broke me. Detective Hernandez called me in again after a few hours. They had found Blythe's SUV abandoned at a long-term parking garage near a regional airport. When I arrived, the lot was crowded with officers and flashing lights. The sight of the empty SUV made my legs feel weak. June's car seat was still inside, but there was no sign of her. I kept touching the seatbelt buckle, imagining her small hands playing with it like she always did. Security footage from the garage showed everything clearly. Blythe walked in first, looking calm, like she wasn't doing anything wrong. Sterling followed right behind her, holding a bag. Their twins, Barrett and Felicity, were skipping along like it was a family vacation. And then I saw her, my June, holding her stuffed frog against her chest. She looked confused, almost tired. She didn't know she was being taken away from everything she loved. They all got into a gray sedan. No plates visible. No company logo. Just a plain, forgettable car. The detectives found out later it was a rental under a fake ID. They had planned this. They had cash, prepaid phones, and a long head start. They knew exactly how to disappear. The national search began. Police in different states were sent alerts. Airports, bus stations, and borders were notified. For a moment, I felt hopeful. Surely someone would see them. Surely someone would recognize June. But every lead went nowhere. Someone thought they saw the gray sedan in another town, but it wasn't theirs. Someone said they spotted a woman matching Blythe's description at a gas station, but the timing didn't match. Every time the phone rang, my heart leaped, only to shatter again when it was nothing. Days felt like years. I barely slept. I barely ate. I stayed near my phone, waiting for any sign, any message, anything that would bring June back to me. The pain was so sharp it felt physical, like someone was pressing down on my chest every minute. At home, I held June's favorite sweater whenever I couldn't hold myself together. It still smelled like her, vanilla shampoo and the faint scent of crayons. I would bury my face in it and scream until my voice disappeared. It was the only way I could release even a little of the fear and grief crushing me. Every night I lay awake imagining where she was. Was she scared? Was she crying for me? Did she still think I was coming for her? I promised myself one thing. I would never stop searching. Not for a second. I would find my daughter, no matter how long it took. I was sitting on my couch, staring at my silent phone, feeling completely lost, when it finally rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway because I was desperate for any news. When I heard the voice, I almost cried. It was my Aunt Raina, my mother's younger sister, the one who had always kept her distance from the rest of the family. She and my parents never got along, and she rarely came to family events. Still, she cared about me in her own quiet way. Her voice was shaking, not from fear but from anger. She said she needed to tell me something important. She explained that she had just received a strange email from my mother. It was meant to sound calming, like it was supposed to reassure her, but it came across as cold and almost proud. Raina said the email talked about seeing the mountains soon and the girls feeding chipmunks. She said the wording was too familiar, exactly the way my mother liked to brag when she thought she was doing something clever. At first, the words didn't make sense to me. Mountains? Chipmunks? What did that have to do with my missing daughter? But Raina kept talking, telling me she knew something was wrong the moment she read it. She said my mother hated the mountains. She hated the cold, hated the wildlife, hated anything that wasn't a hotel or a luxury resort. There was no reason for her to mention mountains unless someone else had written it. Then Raina said the name that made everything click, Blythe. She reminded me that Blythe loved the Rockies. She told me about the time, years ago, when Blythe rented a cabin near Estes Park and talked about how it was the perfect escape from normal life. Raina said the email didn't feel like my mother's idea. It felt like a message written for her, with hints dropped on purpose. I felt a small spark of hope, the first real one since June had been taken. It wasn't much. It was barely more than a guess. But it was something, more than any lead the police had given me in days. Raina apologized for not being closer to me over the years. She said she always knew something was wrong with the way my parents treated me, but she never stepped in because she didn't want to make things worse. Her voice cracked when she said, "I should have been there for you sooner." I told her it didn't matter. What mattered was that she had called now. She had given me the one clue no one else had noticed. She had given me direction when I was drowning in fear. It wasn't a full plan. It wasn't proof. It was just a tiny thread connecting my sister to a place far away. But in that moment, it felt like a lifeline. And I held on to it with everything I had. I reached Colorado with only one thing in my mind. I had to get my daughter back. Detective Hernandez couldn't officially send me, but he told me he understood why I couldn't sit at home and wait. That small bit of support kept me steady as I drove for hours, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. The mountains looked peaceful, but inside me everything was shaking. Using the small clue my aunt had given me, I started checking rental cabins around Estes Park. I looked for places that matched Blythe's taste, quiet, expensive, and isolated. Every day felt long and heavy. I barely slept. I kept seeing June's face in my mind, wondering if she was scared, wondering if she asked for me. Sometimes I had to pull over because the worry pressed on my chest so hard I could barely breathe. On the third day, I found it. I was driving through a high-end cabin community when I saw two children in a fenced yard, Barrett and Felicity. My heart started pounding so fast I thought I might faint. I knew their faces too well. If they were here, then Blythe was here. And if Blythe was here, my baby could be too. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone, but I managed to call the local sheriff. I explained everything, every detail, my voice breaking as I begged them to hurry. They told me to stay back and wait for their unit. But how could I stay calm when June might be just a few steps away? When the sheriff's cars finally arrived and started moving toward the cabin, I followed behind them. I didn't care if I was supposed to or not. My legs felt weak, but they kept moving. Then I saw her. Blythe stepped into the doorway, and she was holding June's hand. My little girl looked clean, calm, dressed in clothes I had never seen before. She wasn't crying, but she looked confused, like she didn't understand what was happening. And seeing her there, alive, real, broke something open in me. A scream burst out of me before I even realized I was making a sound. It didn't feel human. It was pure pain, pure relief, pure rage all at once. I called June's name again and again, reaching out even though she was still far away. Blythe looked at me, not with fear, but with a cold, firm look, like she believed she was doing the right thing, like she still thought she was the better mother. Her eyes were steady, hard, almost proud. It made my blood boil. The sheriff's officers moved in, telling her to step back, telling her to let June go. For a moment, Blythe tightened her grip on my daughter's hand. That moment felt like a knife twisting inside me. All I cared about was getting June back into my arms. My whole world narrowed down to that single point. My breath, my heartbeat, my entire body focused on her. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew I wasn't leaving without my child. Everything after the rescue felt blurry, like I was moving through thick fog. Officers were everywhere, talking to each other, asking questions, guiding people around. But all I could focus on was June in my arms. She was crying so hard her whole body shook. I kept holding her, kissing her hair, whispering that I was there and I wasn't going anywhere. I could feel her little hands gripping my shirt, like she was afraid I might disappear if she let go. As they put Blythe in the squad car, she twisted around just to look at me. Her face was full of anger, but also something colder, something that made my stomach drop. And then she said the words that will never leave me. She calls me Mommy now, Marlo. She's happy. She has siblings. A father figure. A real home. You were never enough for her. You're just the egg donor. It felt like she had hit me. The words landed deep, cutting through every fear I had ever tried to hide. Even with handcuffs on, even while being arrested, Blythe wanted to hurt me. She wanted to leave a wound that would stay forever. The officers tried to push her into the car, telling her to stop talking, but she kept going. She said she had spent days telling June that I was sick, that I couldn't take care of her, that she was going to live with Aunt Blythe forever. She said June believed her. She said June was happier with her family than she had ever been with me. Every sentence made my chest tighten. I could hardly breathe. I held June tighter because suddenly I was terrified. Terrified that those lies had touched her heart, even for a second. Terrified that she had been scared and confused with no one to protect her. Terrified that someone who shared my blood could twist love into something so cruel. I looked down at June's face, red from crying, and I felt guilt crash over me. Not guilt because I had failed her. Guilt because my own sister had used my past, my struggles, and every weakness she could find to make my child doubt me. It felt like betrayal in its purest form. I didn't know pain could be that sharp. When the car door finally shut and Blythe was out of sight, my knees almost gave out. An officer had to steady me. But even then, even shaking and exhausted, I kept holding June like she was the only thing keeping me alive. In that moment, it didn't matter what lies Blythe told. It didn't matter what she believed about me. I knew the truth. I was June's mother, and no amount of cruelty could ever erase that. Back home, the legal process began quickly. Blythe, Sterling, and even my parents were charged with serious crimes: felony kidnapping, conspiracy, and custodial interference. My parents posted bail almost immediately, insisting they had only acted out of love. Their lawyer tried to make them seem reasonable, saying they were only protecting June, and that I, a single mother, was struggling. It made my blood boil, but I knew what had actually happened. The evidence was overwhelming. The photographs of June lining the walls, the detailed timeline of her life, the texts between Blythe and my parents, it all painted a clear picture. Detective Hernandez and the DA both told me the case was strong. Every page, every message, every photo proved the kidnapping had been planned and deliberate. It wasn't a moment of poor judgment. It was a calculated act to take my daughter from me. Even with the legal battle underway, my heart stayed with June. The court arranged for a reunification therapist because she had been manipulated so much. She didn't understand everything yet, and I couldn't blame her. She had been told lies, made to doubt me, and led to believe Blythe was her real mommy. Hearing her ask if she would go back to the big house with the bunk beds felt like a punch to my chest. I hugged her tighter, promising silently that she would never have to go back there. I wanted to protect her from the memories, from the fear, from the betrayal. Going to court every day was exhausting. I sat through long hearings while the lawyers argued over custody, bail, and evidence. Blythe's lawyer tried to make her look like a caring aunt, and my parents' lawyer kept insisting they only wanted the best for June. But when the judge saw the photographs, the notebook of timelines, and the text messages, it was clear what had really happened. They had planned this. They had taken my child with full knowledge and coordination, and they had lied to everyone to make themselves look like heroes. Throughout it all, I tried to stay calm for June. I explained in simple words what was happening, that we were safe now, and that the court would help us stay together. She was still scared sometimes, still crying at night, still asking questions that I didn't have perfect answers for. But I promised her that nothing could take her away from me again. I would fight for her every single day. Even though the legal process was grueling, I knew it was necessary. I wanted to make sure that Blythe, Sterling, and my parents could never threaten June's safety again. I wanted the truth to be clear. And more than anything, I wanted June to feel safe and loved, to heal from what had happened, and to know that I would always be her mother. Blythe agreed to a plea deal and was sentenced to 8 to 12 years in prison. Sterling received 3 to 5 years for helping her. I thought that would feel like justice, but it didn't. My parents, the ones who had planned this from the start, got only probation and were ordered to attend counseling. The judge accepted their excuse that they were misguided grandparents. I couldn't believe it. Anger burned inside me. How could the people who had tried to destroy my family face so little consequence? Even though the law had acted, the victory felt empty. It didn't undo what had been done. My relationship with my parents was broken beyond repair. Every phone call, every visit, every conversation now carried the weight of betrayal. I couldn't look at them the same way again, and I didn't want to. I had to protect myself and June from any more harm. June was struggling too. She had night terrors, waking up crying in the middle of the night, calling for me even after the nightmare ended. Her trust had been stolen, first by Blythe, then by my parents, and it left a scar I couldn't erase. Every time I held her and whispered that I would never leave her side, I felt both relief and sorrow. Relief that she was safe, sorrow for what she had endured. I tried to be strong, tried to comfort her, but I knew it would take a long time for her to feel fully safe again. The home we had lived in, the apartment where we had celebrated birthdays and shared small, happy moments, became a place full of memories I wanted to escape. I sold everything I could. Furniture, decorations, even things that reminded me of better times with my parents. It hurt, but I needed a fresh start for both of us. I wanted to leave behind the geography of pain, the places that carried the weight of betrayal, the spaces that reminded us of fear and loss. I decided to move across the country. A new city, new streets, new routines, somewhere my parents' shadow couldn't reach. It wasn't about running away. It was about reclaiming our lives. June and I would build our own world, one free from manipulation and control. I wanted mornings that were gentle, nights that were calm, and days filled with our own memories, not haunted by the past. Even though the court had acted, even though Blythe and Sterling were paying for their crimes, it felt like I had lost more than I had gained. But I knew I had to keep moving forward. For June, for me, for the life we still had. Our family might be smaller now, but it was ours. And I would protect it fiercely, no matter what. The night before we moved to our new home in a small coastal town in Maine, I took June to the animal shelter. The air smelled of straw and wet fur, and little dogs barked at the gates. She held my hand tightly, her small fingers warm in mine, and I could feel her trust slowly returning. We didn't find a kitten, even though she had wished for one. Instead, we found an older rescue dog, gentle and quiet, who loved to be held. June wrapped her arms around him immediately, pressing her cheek to his fur. She whispered softly, "We're your family now, okay?" Watching them together, I felt something shift inside me. All the fear, all the anger, all the pain from the past months. It didn't disappear, but it changed into something stronger. I realized my revenge wouldn't be shouting, punishing, or holding grudges. My revenge would be living fully, giving June a life filled with love, security, and happiness. I would show Blythe and my parents that no amount of scheming could take away what we had. Every morning we woke together, every laugh, every smile that healed a little more. It was proof that they were wrong. The house in Maine was small, with salty wind and narrow streets, but it was ours. It didn't matter that we had left everything else behind. Our new home would be a place of freedom, not fear. June explored the rooms with the wide-eyed curiosity of a child who had learned to hope again. I watched her and felt my heart swell. This was my family, the one I had fought so hard to protect, stripped down to what truly mattered. Her and me. I understood then that the door they had locked me out of didn't just separate me from a house. It separated me from people who had tried to control and harm us. Their prison was built from lies, manipulation, and misplaced pride. But I had the key, the one thing they could never take, my daughter's hand in mine. Holding her hand, I felt a fierce, steady determination. We had survived the worst betrayal imaginable, and we were starting over on our own terms. The past would always be there, a shadow we could remember, but it would no longer define us. Our love, our bond, and our life together would be the answer to every doubt and every lie they had tried to impose. As June cuddled the dog and whispered her promise to him, I whispered one to myself. This is our life now. Quiet, strong, full of love. Nothing else matters. And with her hand in mine, I knew it would always be enough. Do you think Marlo did the right thing by leaving her parents and starting over with June? Or should she have tried to repair those relationships? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more true-to-life stories.